Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Get out the car.
Get out the car.
Think all drivers are easy targets? These criminals did too, until they met the wrong one.
Get the f*** out of here. You don't want to get shot.
Fasten your seatbelt, folks. Today's video is going to be intense as I reveal some of the craziest moments of real robbers who messed with the wrong Uber drivers and more. Straight to the cops. Luck clearly wasn't on this dumb criminal's side. As soon as he gets on the bus, he attempts to snatch a purse from a lady sitting in the front seat. He fails miserably and plays it off by pretending it's a prank. But with the bus almost on the move, he takes another go at the purse, and guess what? He fails again. And as he's trying to hop off, the driver closes the door, trapping one of his hands in the process. With nowhere left to run now, this dumb thief is in for a real treat. The bus driver pulls out a bat and smacks him over and over again. The kid eventually starts crying before he's handed over to the cops. What a satisfying clip. 7 versus 1. Watch as these 7 suspects attempt to rob a Lyft driver. I'm not sure where the driver is at this point, since the front seat is vacant. One of the kids hops in front and steps on the gas, trying to get away with the vehicle. And that's when we see the heroic driver enter the scene. He's in the white puffer behind the driver, pulling on his jacket to get him to stop. The other kids in the back are kicking and shoving as they attempt to snatch his phone. But despite being significantly outnumbered, the driver still manages to scare off all the kids. And while they did crash his car, their faces are clear on the dashcam, and the police will have zero trouble finding them. Armed robbers evaded in highway heist. Now that's what I call a driver. Cool as a whistle despite being shot at several times. From the looks of it, this truck is probably headed for the bank. And with robbers on the move, these guys are now in a life or death situation as they race across a highway in South Africa. Believe it or not, crimes like this one here are very popular in the country, and that's exactly why you see the passenger pull out an automatic rifle in case things get sticky. But with such a skilled driver behind the wheel, it doesn't look like he'll be needing it. He's cutting through traffic, and like I said before, despite several magazines being emptied at the truck, he's done an excellent job at evading these armed robbers. Locked and loaded. Unfortunately for this bunch, stealing this Uber driver's ride was probably their biggest mistake. While the driver appears to walk away defeated at first, he comes back guns blazing and unloads an entire magazine at the thieves. He hits and seriously injures 2 of the carjackers who barely make it out alive. And now, for the scary bit. It wasn't just the Uber driver who was armed. All the thieves had weapons of their own, and while the driver's heroics are definitely appreciated, things could have turned ugly real fast. Bad timing. This Uber thief could not have picked a better time to rob this driver. I mean, think about it. The light is red, the driver can't speed off anywhere. This is probably going to be the easiest cash grab of his life. Until he looks behind him, of course. The police are literally behind them, and as soon as they notice what's going on, they approach the side of the vehicle, shutting down the potential robbery in an instant. Talk about being at the right place at the perfect time. Desperate thieves. How desperate do you have to be to rob an Uber driver? I mean, it's not like these guys are making a ton of money or something. And do they really think the masks are going to help? Watch as all hell breaks loose when these 2 robbers attempt to rob this driver, holding him at gunpoint, telling him to get out of the car. The driver's quick thinking saves the day though, as he's calm enough to jump out the car and get away safely. As for these robbers, what they didn't know was that Uber has their complete profile, and catching them won't be an issue. Real tough guy. This robber is a real tough guy. I mean, hitting an elderly citizen for a couple of bucks? Now that has to be the most cowardly thing ever. Besides, what was he even thinking? Does he not know almost every Uber driver out there has a dash cam now? Anyway, while he was able to get away with the theft at first, he was arrested shortly later that day. And after a quick court visit, word is, this guy was sentenced for several years behind bars. Bro, you live on Facebook. This Uber driver was probably on a rant about the fares when an unexpected visitor showed up.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
He flashed his gun and pulled the driver out of the vehicle, bagging himself an easy few grand. But what this thief didn't know is that the driver was streaming his rant live on Facebook. So, not only was his face crystal clear in the camera, but he was also seen by millions of social media users in a matter of seconds. The live went crazy viral as thousands of people began to share it, and that's when the online detectives got to work. In a matter of just a couple of minutes, they found his social media, helping authorities put this man behind bars. Quick thinking saves the day. It takes some serious guts to do this, and I'm not sure whether it's the right thing or not either. Because when you think about it, the thief could have opened fire any second. The driver is lucky to be alive, but at the end of the day, his quicking thinking saved the day. I wouldn't recommend reversing though, since it gives the robber an easy shot if he decides to shoot. Gang of delinquents. This clip really boils my blood. I mean, carjacking people in broad daylight with golf clubs. Don't these people have anything better to do? But still, watching one of them get rocked with an absolutely banger of a strike was extremely satisfying. Oh, and just by the way, this was an attempted carjacking as the entire gang got busted in the same evening. Intense carjacking. Again, do these passengers not know that Uber has their entire profile, and they can literally track the vehicle using both phones? So even if the driver isn't the car, the vehicle's still being tracked through the passenger's phone. Anyway, I do applaud this driver's bravery for fighting back, but this thief was armed, and sometimes the best thing to do is just let them have their way. What's worth more, your life or a car? I think we all know the answer to that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't stand up to bad guys, but sometimes it's best to stay out of danger because at the end of the day, these guys get caught. Like this thief as well, who was bagged by the cops after they located the vehicle a couple of days later. A stun gun. These robbers are starting to get creative now. There are two of them in this cab who asked the driver to drop them off a couple of miles ahead. It was supposed to be a normal trip until the passenger in the front seat pulled out a stun gun. You heard that right, a stun gun. How does someone even get their hands on that? Anyway, one of them stunned him while the other pulled him out of the vehicle. Luckily, this guy only lost around $50 that night as the thieves took off with his wallet. Empty-handed and caught. These guys had a plan, I will give them that much. But at least cover your tattoos, man. While disabling the dashcam, this fool exposed himself because of a tattoo. While both of them were arrested later trying to hit up a grocery store, they couldn't even rob this driver. The police report states that they had to scramble empty-handed as the driver was able to ward them off. Floor it.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Come off the door.
I can't even imagine how it would feel being in a situation like that. The driver is begging for his life as the robber holds him at gunpoint. He's demanding cash, but he's out of luck, as this guy has nothing on him. But the robber wants to check himself, and while walking around the car to reach the front door, he gives the driver just enough time to speed off. Just look at how the driver is shifting here. It's like he turned into an F1 driver, and I don't blame him either. Anyway, this attempted robbery also has a happy ending as the thief pleaded guilty after getting caught. A violent robbery. This is where things get intense. The driver in this clip was left with multiple injuries after being choked out by this robber. He couldn't steal anything of value since the driver didn't really have anything on him. And thanks to that dashcam, the police were able to identify this violent robber after Samaritans confirmed his identity. Tip thief. Her name is Gabby, folks. Remember that. And while she doesn't think it's a big deal to steal $5 from a tip jar, the internet feels differently. Watch how she snatches some notes out of a tip jar and makes a run for it. The driver catches on, but by then, it's too late as Gabby has already escaped. But here's the funny bit. The internet identified her in a matter of hours and even located her Instagram with a photo of her wearing the exact same fit. Believe it or not, she even gave an interview afterwards, stating how it wasn't really a big deal considering she returned the $5 she stole. I'll let you be the judge on this one. Keep your doors locked, folks. It doesn't matter whether you're driving or parked. Keep your doors locked, or this will happen. These two guys whip open this Lyft's driver's ride and attempt to steal his car. I don't know how, but this guy somehow manages to fight off both of them. And when one of the robbers pulls out a knife, that's when Ibrahim here knows it's time to floor it. He shared his story firsthand and talked about how Uber thefts are on the rise these days. Well, Ibrahim, I'm glad you made it safe, but please keep your doors locked. Crying for mommy. This footage is intense and hilarious at the same time. These guys thought this driver would be an easy target, but what they didn't know is that he's not afraid to die. As soon as they try to get him to stop using their gun, he decides to take them on a wild ride. He speeds up the vehicle, cutting through traffic and whipping the steering wheel left and right. And that's when the thieves realize they've picked the wrong driver. They both start begging him to stop, and what's funny is you can even hear one of them yelling how he wants his mom. I have not seen someone switch up so quickly. Anyway, the driver finally decides to end the joyride after slowing down and hopping out to safety. But this easily has to be the funniest clip in this entire video. Certified badass. I can't get enough of this video. Straight off the bat, you can tell this guy's a total badass. When the robber gets inside his vehicle, he's calm as a cucumber and doesn't even flinch. Even when the thief pulls out a gun, the driver stands his ground and tells the dude to get out.
Get the f*** out of here. You don't want to get shot.
And even while threatened with a gun, this guy's answers are off the charts. When this messed up kid asks him for his wallet, he calls him bro and tells him how they literally live in a digital world now.
I don't have cash. A digital world, bro.
The attempt is cut short when decides to floor it, forcing the thief to jump out. Oh, and the passenger at the back also deserves credit for staying super calm throughout. Entitled passengers get thrown out. Rules are rules, ladies and gentlemen, and because it's the drivers who mostly have to pay the consequences, I think as passengers we should be a bit more considerate. Or in other words, don't act like these guys. There's 5 of them trying to cram in this vehicle. Honestly speaking, the driver is way too nice for all this. He politely reminds them how he'll get a ticket or even end up going to jail if they get pulled over. But the lady on the front seat who can't stop stuffing her face looks all unconvinced and keeps on pestering him to go. He eventually ends the ride and makes them all get out of the car. Looks like that lady just needed a place to eat. Wrong Uber. Imagine stepping into the wrong Uber and asking the driver to still take you. And if the driver refuses, just whip out your camera and make up some fake story about how he abused you. That's exactly what this passenger here did. But the driver wasn't about to let it slide. As soon as he notices how this gentleman of a passenger is refusing to get out, he rings up the cops, and that's when this dude knows it's time to dip. I mean, come on guys, it's Uber, not a valid service. Say my name.
What's my name?
Chris.
Not Chris.
This is a really popular scam, and chances are you'll see a couple of more clips of it as well. This passenger right here gets in this guy's vehicle without any conversation. She whips open the door, gets in, and expects him to just start driving. But that's when the driver asks for a name, and failure to answer that question usually means it's a scam. This woman refuses to give her name, despite the driver asking calmly several times, and that's when he decides to kick her out. And if you're curious how the scam works, once these fake passengers know where they're headed, they ring up their gang, who's usually waiting there to rob the driver. Drunk passenger gets confrontational. This is another case of the classic 5 passengers, and offering drivers some extra money isn't going to change the law. So firstly, this driver deserves a ton of credit for standing up to 5 guys. And secondly, check how spoiled these men are. They're calling him stupid.
Dude, you're stupid.
And trying to enforce the fact that he's going to take them. But when he tells them to get out of his car, one drunk dude gets super confrontational and flips him, shoving his finger in his face. I mean, that's a really petty thing to do. But I'm glad this driver had a dash cam because, boy, this passenger got shamed pretty bad. Drunk out of his mind. Get a load of this guy here. He thought it would be a good idea to attack the person driving him. And look at his face for a second as well. Notice how his expressions don't even change once. It's obvious this guy is drunk out of his mind. And credit to the driver for not beating him up. There goes your modeling career. This wild bunch is probably red-listed by now after not only attacking, but also coughing on a driver during COVID. He politely asked one of them to wear a mask and even offered to drive them to the gas station to purchase one. But these women went berserk, attacking the man and even trying to steal his phone. One of the women was actually a model, and after being identified, her Insta was pretty much flooded with public justice. Well, there goes your modeling career, lady. This dude needs help. I wouldn't exactly call this guy dumb or anything. I think he seriously needs help. I mean, if he was willing to crash the car while on the freeway, he probably isn't right in the head. It's a long and hard fight as the driver tries his best to prevent this guy from swerving the car. And I mentioned he needs help because by the end of the scuffle, the troubled passenger starts telling the driver how he's sorry and how he loves him. Weird, but okay. And in case you're a new Uber driver or thinking of joining, I think this video is probably a real eye-opener. Get a room, you two. Sure, it's nice to know that drunk people aren't on the road and using ride-sharing apps, but at least wait till you're home. Like this couple over here, now I wouldn't say they got frisky or anything, but they were definitely pretty excited. And to be honest, the driver seems okay with that, but I think they're getting a little handsy under the blanket, and he politely asks them to stop. But when the lady tells him to shut up, he loses it and tells them to get out of his car. It eventually turns into a fight as the man opens his door and pulls him out. Thankfully, the driver is able to defend himself and kicks both of them out. Now here's something that's going to really piss you off. Lyft actually deactivated the driver afterwards. Picking up drugs on an Uber.
I'm about to call the police. Okay.
For what?
Because you don't want to get out of my car. It's my personal property.
This is just absurd. You know you've failed even as a drug dealer when you're picking up your supply on an Uber. And the courage of this driver. I mean, standing up to 4 potential criminals, that's crazy. You never know who they are or what they're carrying, but this guy wasn't about to let anything slide. And I think all of them were guilty as well, considering how they stepped out without any argument. The dude in the back who collected the suspicious item stays for a bit longer, but he too eventually steps out of the Uber and dips. Oh, and in case you were wondering, the driver was right. It was an actual drug deal. Cab versus Uber. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of cab drivers have something against Uber. They think the ride-sharing app is putting them out of business. Watch as this cab driver literally clings onto an Uber after it took a potential passenger. And the comment section underneath this clip was hilarious. One user wrote how hanging onto an Uber was 100 times better than taking a cab. Cab driver saves passenger. But unlike the last clip, not all cab drivers are bad. This driver takes some time to compose himself, but thankfully drives away in time, saving this passenger from getting stabbed. He's being assaulted from both sides as 2 men try to stab him. He has a knife of his own as he fights back, repeatedly yelling, "Uncle Drive," to get the driver going. It's an intense clip, and honestly speaking, these drivers have my respect. I mean, just look at the things they go through on a daily basis. Absolutely incredible. Justified shooting. This Uber was carrying 3 passengers when an unknown truck driver got them to pull over. He seems hostile as he walks towards the Uber, and to be fair, the driver did warn him. He's forced to open fire at the unknown man, potentially saving his own and the lives of 3 others. The shooting was later justified as self-defense. It turns out the guy thought his girlfriend was in the Uber as he threatened to hurt both him and the passengers. Uber driver breaks up fight. These two women decided to settle a personal beef in the back seat of this Uber driver's vehicle. And judging from all the crazy things we've already seen in this video so far, the reaction of the driver makes sense. He's super unconcerned and has a master plan to break up the fight. He pulls up at a Taco Bell and casually starts placing an order, and when the two girls at the back catch on, they stop and begin placing an order of their own. I mean, this is the ideal situation, of course, and not every fight can be stopped like this. But that was certainly some out-of-the-box thinking by the driver. Face full of pepper spray. This is it right here, folks. If you work as a driver and don't want to carry a weapon or something, just have some pepper spray with you. I guarantee it'll come in handy. This passenger is way too drunk as he doesn't even know where he's headed at this point, and after several requests to exit, just as he's stepping out the vehicle, he decides to attack the driver. And that's exactly when he gets a face full of pepper spray. The perfect getaway car. This Uber driver got way more than what he bargained for after picking up a shady passenger. As soon as she gets in, she lays low on the seat and tells the uncle in front to drive and take cover. And that's when we hear gunshots go off. Now, credit to the uncle for being a fair sport and driving out of there, but the actions of this lady could have gotten him killed. I'm glad they made it out of there alive. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. So, what do you think? Which incident left you shocked? And do you have some crazy Uber stories of your own? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more exciting videos in the future.